Hi everyone, so we're here today to talk about our work on visualizing student satisfaction. So student satisfaction surveys are a common thing at universities and they're used generally in subjects to evaluate how a subject is going. And these pieces of feedback are really valuable for improving teaching and for allowing students to voice their comments and concerns, as well as give constructive feedback. So some example responses that we see in our data here is we get a satisfaction rating on a scale of 1 to 5 on a Likert scale. So the comment here, which is given a 5, it says great structured unit, very well organized, and it's a great learning environment. We've got one here as well, which is not so good, a satisfaction rating of 2, and the response says that the assessment and the lectures didn't relate well, and it was confusing overall. So our motivation to look at methods for visualization is that reading many comments can quite often be time consuming and is not consistent as well. So if you have a subject with over 1,000 students and let's say 100 students give comments, it's going to take a long time to read through all these pieces of feedback, and you then have to work on summarizing and look at actions. And what if you have to do this over multiple subjects, such as a manager who may have to review several subjects? So we were hoping to look at ways to visualize these comments. And we boiled this down into 2 research questions. Number 1 here, how can we use a visual representation of comments to examine student satisfaction? And then what impact can this have for educators? So we started off and we needed to prepare our text data. So step number 1 was choosing a subset of data. So that was selecting a particular subject, in our case, that we wanted to examine. Step number 2 was pre-processing the data. So this is getting the data ready and in a standardized format that's going to work well for the text analysis techniques that we're using. First bit here we did was turn all the characters into lowercase, so capitals are seen the same as lowercase letters. We removed stop words, so words such as the and, which generally don't add a lot of meaning to a sentence. And we lemmatized, so we turned words back into their base form. So for example, the word running gets truncated back down to the word run. Step number 3 was to determine keywords, and we used a technique called latent Dirichlet allocation, or LDA. This method is a statistical analysis method, and it identifies topics as well as groups of topics. And we use this technique here to determine the topics that appeared most. So we used LDA, and then the topics that appeared most from this LDA algorithm, we then selected as our keywords or our important terms that we were going to use for this analysis. Final part, which is important, is finding the sentiment of each comment. So the sentiment is the positivity or negativity of a response. We had a standardized list of words with sentiments included, and to find the sentiment of each keyword, we looked at each word in a sentence. So for example, the sentence, the lectures were good. We looked at the sentiment for each word which was on a pre-populated list. So for example, the word the has a neutral sentiment, so it was 0. Lectures neutral, were neutral. The word good is a positive sentiment, so it was worth +1. We add them all together to get the average sentiment for the entire sentence. This is only one method for a sentiment analysis, but this is the one we chose to use for this analysis. So what type of results can we see with this method here? So we notice on the top 9 keywords which were automatically extracted and ones that are of importance to student satisfaction. Words such as assignment, tutor, subject, group. And we see as well that the green is the number of students who mention positive things about the keyword, and the red is the number of students who mention negative things. So what happens if we want to delve more into this keyword of assessment? It was quite a polarizing topic, so it might be good to look at it a bit more. So one comment that includes the word assessment was a student talking about managing workload, and they didn't want any more assessment, so maybe that was too much. So let's grab this graph here and let's extract and examine the keyword assessment. So here we've performed exactly the same method with the same 4 steps, except we are using only comments which have this keyword assessment appearing in them as well. And then we are looking for different keywords, not the keyword assessment, but other ones as well. So we can see here, for example, somebody's comment was talking about that the assessment was maybe a waste of time, and that lines up with our negative 2 on time. So time is something that we may want to look into a little bit for this subject here. Number 2, we have another subject here. We see again the different keywords. So keywords such as tutorial, lecture, assignment, and content are appearing a lot. We've got a comment from a student saying that it's great to have such a passionate and inspiring lecturer here. So let's delve down into these lecture comments a little bit more. Maybe we can have a look at what's making them positive and negative. So we pull out that graph and let's extract only the comments that have the keyword lecture, and we'll perform the same 4 steps again as well, and this gives us a little bit more insight. So for example here, the keyword content has quite a few negative mentions, and we see in this comment here they're talking about that the content was sometimes not all contained on the slides. So something possibly to work on, even with all those good scores about lecturing. Some existing alternatives that we can compare against. So on the left here we have Lexomancer. We see these keywords definitely appearing as well, and they've been arranged in a graphical fashion, but we do not have attached sentiment, and some of the keywords are a bit different as well. The one on the right, most of you probably would have seen in some form or another, a word cloud. The size of the word is referring to the frequency, however, again, no sentiment attached there. So in conclusion, we have presented a visual representation which can deal with a large number of comments. So you can have units or multiple units all summarized down into one figure. And I want to reiterate as well that this is a completely automated process from start to finish. So the keywords are determined automatically, the pre-processing is done automatically, and the figure generated automatically. All you need to do is pass your data in. So you don't need to know anything about text analysis to use this tool, and it allows quick action to be taken and things to be summarized across large numbers of units. So in conclusion, we see that this can have a real impact in an actual learning environment.